From TeachIllinois.com, this is The Teacher's Classroom, the podcast that explores current issues and topics in education and how they relate to teaching and students. Here is your host, Matt Weld.
Hello and welcome to episode 13 of The Teacher's Classroom. Today we are going to be talking with a happiness coach, Kim Strobel, and as our kind of a back to school episode, because, well, you know, we've been talking on the show. If you've been following this show, we've talked to experts in trauma. We've been talking to experts in bullying. We've been talking to experts in mindfulness. And one thing that keeps coming to the surface is that teachers need to take care of themselves, because we deal with all of those kiddos that come into our classroom and their trauma can slough off onto us. And we, you know, I don't know if we necessarily want to call it blowback trauma, but we need to take care of ourselves. And so I am happy to have as our guest today, Kim Strobel. She's a licensed ELA teacher for grades K-12. She's taught in classrooms at all grade levels during her almost 20 years as an education professional. She began teaching her teaching career in fourth grade, and then served as a K-12 literacy coordinator, and then as a director of curriculum and instruction. In her tenure as director of curriculum instruction, she helped develop curriculum in all content areas, collaborated with teachers and administrators to identify instructional needs, and also served as a liaison with state and local agencies. So she has a great educational background, but what intrigues me the most about Kim is that she has recently added the role of happiness coach to her resume, and her new business guides individuals toward rediscovering their authentic selves and reclaiming their personal and professional joy. And I think as teachers, our personal self sometimes gets lost when we're taking care of others. Kim sprinkles happiness tips and tricks into her education workshops, ensuring teachers re-enter their classrooms with renewed purpose and passion. So thank you, Kim, for being here.
You are welcome. I am thrilled to be able to talk about these important topics in the field of education.
So when you and I were in high school looking for careers, I don't remember happiness coach being in that list.
No, it's interesting to think about the involvement or the evolvement of the happiness coach. As you can see, I've had a strong background in education, but there's really an entire kind of backstory to how I birthed the happiness coach. And so for the last 15 years or so, I've kind of thrown myself into the personal development field. I always felt extremely drawn to that. I had a lot of darkness and struggles and challenges in my own life that I had to walk through. And it's interesting, you know, sometimes I think your mess becomes your mission in life. And because of the challenges and struggles I had, which was extreme panic disorder and agoraphobia and high anxiety, I kind of threw myself into the happiness research and the personal development field. And what I found was that so much more of it was under my control than I previously thought. And so kind of how this happened was I just found myself sharing a lot of the ideas that I had found and a lot of the research that I had done on my own and investigated. And I found that people were really hungry for this. And so in January of 2016, I actually birthed two different businesses. I surrendered my curriculum director's job and started StrobelEducation.com, which had a focus on content topics, of course, you know, growth mindset and standards-based grading and reading and writing workshops and a bunch of them. But then I also always kind of held on to this idea of, wow, I mean, people really reach out to me to help them feel empowered in their life because they've kind of watched the actions that I've taken over the last several years to create the life that I have, which I really, really love in big ways. And so then I kind of birthed KimStrobel.com, the happiness coach. And what was so interesting is I decided as I would deliver my educational topics that I was going to sprinkle in the happiness research and some tips for how do we kind of begin to step into who we really are at the core of our being, and how do we take charge of being responsible for the kind of life that we want to live, and how do we see life as a gift. And what I found was that although teachers were super excited about the educational topics, as soon as they found out I was a happiness coach as well, they started to form a line at my table at the first break, and they wanted to know all about when's the next happiness workshop, or when's your happiness retreat, or you're speaking my love language. I feel so lost. I feel so exhausted. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel like I've lost my life to this profession. And I started to see that teachers especially were so hungry and ready to try to reclaim a piece of their life. So, I do this training with educators. I do it with hospitals and insurance agencies. The happiness piece hits everyone. But I have such a strong urge to share this message with educators, because I think that it's very easy in today's world to get lost from ourselves. And teachers are like the worst. We put everybody else ahead of ourselves. I mean, we've been willing to sacrifice our families for our careers.
Right.
And it's starting to catch up with us, Well,
it's interesting that you mentioned that you reach out to healthcare professionals, because as you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if she's ever done this for, first responders or police or anything like that, who, like teachers, assumes everybody's problem and they're the helpers in society, basically.
Absolutely. And I think you really hit on something. I know as part of our trauma training, we talk about trauma in teachers, because that's a real thing too, not just everything that we're dealing with, but the students that we work with can weigh so heavy on our own hearts that we don't always have coping strategies to deal with that either. And we can let that kind of eat us alive. And so you're right. There's trauma in our students, and how do we deal with that? But I also think that many teachers are dealing with their own types of trauma from the profession that they've chosen to serve in, which is such a noble, sacred profession, but it also does have its effects on our well-being in really big ways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I bet if you pulled an entire stadium of teachers and asked how many of you have lain awake at night or been woken up worrying about a kid's personal life, I bet everyone would raise their hand.
I 100% agree with you. That's just who we are too. We're empaths. We feel very, very deeply for these children that we serve. And, we don't walk out the door and just forget about them. I mean, I know I have been, had many sleepless nights trying to figure out how I can support a child because he's, in such dire need. And so, yeah, we kind of don't always take our own personal well-being into account. And, I recently had a hospital that reached out to me to train their upper level management team, because we kind of just think the more that we push ourselves, the harder we work and the more successful we become, that happiness resides on the other side of that formula. But what we know from the most recent research is actually quite the opposite. Sean Aker says that a positive brain versus a negative, neutral, or stressed brain will be 31% more productive. So that I kind of pose that to educators, how many of you are operating on a positive brain? I think most of us operate out of a stressed brain, and it reduces our productivity levels, and we spend more and more hours at the school trying to accomplish and get done everything that we need to, when in fact we're losing our productivity levels, we're losing our time with our family, and we really have to take control of that again. And that's going to cause some anxiety in us, Matt, because most of us are type A. We're type A, we're go-getters, we're OCD. We want everything in its place. We want to make sure that our desk is nice and clean and ready for tomorrow's impactful lessons. And so what I tell teachers is, yeah, I'm wired like that too, big time. But I also have learned I got to get out that door. You need to be out of that classroom door by 4:00. And you need to leave some things undone, because you can't risk your personal well-being. And that's what we've done.
Right. And so I was reading your blog the other day in preparation for this interview, and I noticed that you are a big proponent of random acts of kindness. as a way to, be happy. And it's funny that I read that because then just this weekend we celebrated my wife's birthday and she gave presents to other people on her birthday. So,
wow.
And I don't know if that's just, a stage in her life but she's probably the most positive person I know. So the fact that you say as a happiness coach to do random acts of kindness, and then, giving gifts on your birthday to other people. So, but tell me more about the random acts of kindness.
Yeah, well, so there's 5 major happiness habits that a person can do to really raise their baseline happiness level. And I can get into the research on that later. But one of the 5 is random acts of kindness. So what we know is that actually when you perform a kind act for someone else, whether it's you buy them a gift or you give them a compliment or you write them a nice email or you send a little card in the mail, what we know is that you will actually experience more from that than the receiver who receives the gift. So the brain research shows that the neurons in your brain will fire at higher levels of positivity than even the person receiving the gift. And I think, that resonates with all of us. I mean, I know the other day, and I really try to incorporate random acts of kindness in my life, but I have this little flower garden. So last week I clipped some flowers, put them in a vase, and put them on my house, the lady who cleans my house, on her front porch. And I left there so excited that I got to give her this kind of gift of love and appreciation. And then of course I got a text and, oh my gosh, what a surprise, Kim. I loved getting those flowers. And so, it can be something small. For me, I remember back in 2015, I decided that I was going to send a personalized note card to one person every single week. And it was just someone that I recognized doing something great. So, for example, I remember I was out of town and I was shopping at Walmart, and such a kind lady was just so jovial and happy and greeted me and was so happy to check me out and bag my stuff. And I walked away and I thought, gosh, she can find such happiness being, in the Walmart checkout line, checking everyone out. And she just greeted everyone with a smile. And I took note and I looked at her name tag, and I sent a note to that Walmart with her name on it, just saying this is what you did for me. And it was so wonderful to be greeted by someone. And so what we know is that anytime we can do that, it actually will raise our baseline happiness level. And, kindness is contagious, Matt, you know that. It's got this ripple effect that tends to happen. And so I'm very conscientious of doing for others. I also do for myself a lot of the time as well. I think that's another piece that teachers need to learn how to value themselves enough to sometimes put themselves first, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, I think it can just I would challenge everybody right now listening to this podcast, and it might feel a little funny or uncomfortable, but I would challenge every single person to pick up their phone and to send a text just to someone. It can be a friend, it can be a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, a coworker, and just say, hey, I wanted to take a moment to tell you how much I appreciate you or what I love about you. And I will tell you that it's that text that you get back that is so powerful. And so that's one of the things we do in the happiness workshop is I tell everybody, get your phone out right now. And I want you to send a text. And if you have to, you can even say, hey, I'm in this happiness workshop and we've been asked to do a random act of kindness. Put it on me if you need to. If it feels too quirky, just say, hey, I've been challenged to do a random act of kindness and I've chosen you. But really, see what happens when you kind of dole out that random act of kindness that no one's expecting, because the person obviously will benefit from it, but you will as well.
Yes, I think that's a fantastic idea. You mentioned 5 habits of happiness. Can we go down that road right now? You've mentioned one. Okay, so what are the others? It's intriguing.
And is it okay if I kind of start out and give you the happiness research so you can know which part of the pie that I'm actually talking about?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay, so all of us have a set baseline happiness level that we operate out of. So yours might be kind of high, mine might be kind of in the middle or kind of low, and someone else's is somewhere else. And so what happens is, like, really good things happen in our life. We get a new job, we get a new house, we buy a new car, we go on vacation, we get a new purse, and our happiness level will go up for a period of time, but it almost always will reset right back to your baseline. You know, so like recently I was shopping with my daughter, Claire, and we were at the outlet malls, and I bought her a Kate Spade purse, and we're walking out into the parking lot, and I'm like, Claire, I just want you to know, like, you're really happy about this right now, and I'm happy to do it for you, but, you know, you're going to reset. Like, this is not contributing to your long-term happiness. And she's like, seriously? Did you really, like, just let me enjoy this purse, you know? but it's true. We have good things happen, and we're really happy for just a short period of time, and then we reset back to our baseline. The exact same thing is true of really bad things. As hard as that is to sometimes swallow, the brain research comes back over and over again that you can actually endure even traumatic events in your life. And after a period of time, your body kind of, and your brain has this uncanny ability to kind of reset to whatever your baseline is. And so, you know, you have people who have high baseline levels of happiness. You know, you see them, they just kind of go through life happy, they're positive, they're joyful. It sounds like your wife might have kind of a higher set baseline level. And then there's others of us who have to work at it, you know, who maybe see the world through the lens of everything that's wrong with it. But what's interesting is when we look at your baseline happiness level, what the research says is that 50% of that is genetic, okay? So 50%, Matt, of your set baseline happiness level comes from your mom or your dad or a mixture of both. And there's nothing you can do about that. All right. So sometimes when I tell teachers this, they start to hang their heads like, oh man, you know, like there's no hope for me.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, you know, that's just 50% of it. And then 10% of that pie chart, and only 10%, is your external circumstances, which means 10% of your happiness is maybe how much money you make. Oh, I have a dog barking in the background. I have closed the door, but he is choosing to act up in the back there. So I apologize. I may have to like do an intervention here.
It's okay. Mine might start up here in a minute too, so it's okay.
Oh my goodness. Well, so 10% of it is going to be like what kind of car you drive, what kind of home you live in, what kind of money you make, what kind of material worldly things you have in your life. But that is so hard for us to believe because, you know, all of us think that if I can just save up enough money to purchase this bigger house or this better car, like we all work towards those material things.
Right.
But in all reality, they contribute less than 10% of our long-term happiness. And, you know, I'm just as guilty of that, too. Like my husband will be like, okay, happiness coach, why do you have 72 pairs of shoes in the closet? Right. You know, and I say, hey, Scott, you know what? That I think I'm the anomaly. I think that my shoes contribute more than 10% of my happiness.
10% is only an average. I'm above average.
Right? That does make sense because we kind of think like, you know, the more money you have, the happier you're going to become. And we all know that's not true. Even though we're all chasing it, we all know that the richest people in the world are not the happiest.
That's true. The lottery winners aren't necessarily automatically happy.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with wanting money or wanting to surround yourself with beautiful things. It's just that when you count on those to really bring your true happiness, it's not going to matter as much at the end of the day. So now we're up to, you know, 60%, 50% genetic, 10% your external circumstances. The part that has intrigued me the most is that leaves 40%. And the research tells us that every single one of us, regardless of where your baseline happiness level is, every single one of us has the ability to increase it by up to 40%. And that, Matt, is exactly what I've done in the last 10 years of my life. Like, I have increased my baseline happiness level to where I operate now at a much higher vibration. It doesn't mean that I don't sometimes cry or get frustrated or become negative. But what it does mean is that my ability to bounce out of that quicker, and that I truly, and I know that some people might think this sounds quirky, but like, every single day that I wake up, Matt, I feel like so lucky to live my life. Like, and I will tell you, this is the girl who suffered for years with extreme anxiety and panic disorder. This is the girl who struggled to walk to her mailbox at one point in her life. And I see life as such a gift, and I've really learned how to embrace it. And I've learned to do that with these 5 kind of happiness habits. And so I'll go through those with you. Of course, one is random acts of kindness. Another is meditation. So incorporating some type of mindfulness practice into your life has shown to rewire those neural connections in your brain. And so, for me, I love Deepak Chopra's Ananda app. That's what I use to meditate to daily. I know that there's an app called Calm that's actually free for educators, and I have a lot of teachers who use that with their students in the classroom. I incorporated meditation into my 4th grade classroom years ago, back when it was woo-woo-y, and I was told, like, you can't call it meditation, Kim. Like, I'll have parents calling me. But we practiced mindfulness in the classroom, and I saw really big effects of that with my students. So meditation, all right. And then social connections is also one of the top 5, which means you need to have friends that you do things with. You need to take that guys' night out once a month, or the ladies' dinner out, or like, you need to be around people and do social things. That is one of the biggest ways to kind of increase that happiness level. And I know for me, sometimes that's like the number one that I have to work on. Like, I've got meditation down. I've got random acts of kindness down. I've got exercise down. I've got the gratitude down. But the social connection piece, sometimes I have to stretch myself because I'm so exhausted. I just want to stay in my house, and like, I don't feel like going out, or, I just want to veg out with my Netflix. But those relationships are so important. Having a core group of friends that you do things with can really, elevate your happiness levels. And then, of course, exercise. I'm a big runner. I try to run. Well, I shouldn't say this because this is going to make everybody, but I'm very high strung. You can probably tell from how quick I talk. And if you saw me in action, I move very fast. And so I run about 30 miles a week. And that's been one of the biggest things that's helped me with my anxiety. To me, running and exercising has been such a huge piece of my mental health. And then gratitude. I have a gratitude journal. And gratitude, there's tremendous research out there that says that if you keep a gratitude journal, that you increase your baseline happiness level. And so for the last probably 8 years or so, I've had a gratitude journal, and I sit down every night and I write 10 things that I'm grateful for. And what that does is it makes me go out throughout my day, and I'm constantly picking, things out. Like this morning, I actually did a spin class, and I was like, I was sweating, and I was just so thankful that I had a body that could sweat and could move the way that it does. I look out right now in my office and I see the green grass and the sun shining, and I think, like, thank you for that, even those little small things. And so having a gratitude journal, what it's done is it's rewired my neural connections and my feedback loop, so that when I look out at my world, I am picking things out that are good versus always seeing the negative.
Yes.
And so those 5 things there, and I tell people, start with one. start with one. But I'll also be real honest with you, Matt. Everybody wants to be happier, but very few people are willing to do the work to become happier.
Well, it's like everybody wants to be fit, but getting to the gym is a whole nother story.
That's right. And so I tell people, like, you can't just say you want to be happier. Like, you got to practice happiness habits. Like, those are intentional habits on my part on a daily basis. I practice my happiness habits.
Because, I mean, you're talking about meditation, which is in itself its own, you know, we were talking to the conference recently about this type of thing with your kids, but the instructor was saying that you need to develop your own mindfulness practice first. And so you're talking about that, you're talking about exercise, and you're talking about feeling grateful. Those are in and of themselves a whole, you know, pretty big things to accomplish. So
they are, you know,
strategy is to do all 5 in little bits at a time, or do one of the 5 at a time, or what do you think?
Here's what we know. So I tell people, because, you know, obviously I've had years of this. And so for me, you know, not now, almost daily, every now and then I'll miss a meditation or whatever. But for me, you know, pretty much every day I'm going to meditate, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do my gratitude journal. The random acts of kindness is something more like, I don't know that I every single day perform it, although I think now it's become such a part of who I am that even if it's smiling at someone or giving a compliment or thanking someone, you know, I just feel like that just becomes part of who I am. But, and then the social connections piece, like I said, that's the one right there. That's the area I need to improve on. And so I'm working on it. I had some neighbors over, some ladies about 3 weeks ago, and we enjoyed some wine on my back deck. And we were all left. We were all so happy. I don't know if it was the social connections or the wine, but it worked, you know? But that's the one I have to work on. But yeah, the others are just a part of my life. But I tell people, like, you can't just go from, like, you got to set yourself up to be successful. And so what we know is that you can rewire the brain in 21 days. So I tell people, okay, let's be reasonable about this. I want you to pick one. Pick the gratitude journal. It doesn't have to be 10 things you're thankful for. For me, it started out being 3. You know, and then I incorporated it into my school setting. I remember I sent an email out to like 6 of my friends there that were educators at the school that I worked at. And I said, hey, I've been studying about gratitude. I have found that it's very powerful. I know it's a challenge sometimes to get through our days. Who would like to be part of what I'm calling the Grateful 5, which means that almost every day, when you think about it, I want you to email all of us, you know, 5 things that you're thankful for. And that was so neat because, you know, you'd pop down at your computer and I'd open up my email and there would be Loretta's, you know, 5 things that she was thankful for. And then maybe 2 hours later, I'd open it up again and there's Laura's 5 things that she's thankful for. And so all day long, I was getting little reminders of resetting myself towards positive. And so, you know, that's something to even consider for teachers. You know, if you want to maybe get 2 or 3 or 4 people together and say, hey, I'm practicing gratitude and wondered if you'd want to do this during the school day, whenever you can fit it in or you think about it. That was kind of neat that we did. But yeah, take one habit and say, I'm going to fully commit to this habit for 21 days, because we know after 21 days, you have new circuitry in your brain, you have a new feedback loop, and those neural connections begin to form your new normal. And so maybe after you accomplish that, then you bring on one more happiness habit. You know, I think that that's a successful way of incorporating it.
So it sounds like if we're going to leave teachers with something doable for them to do at the beginning of this next school year, as I'm listening to you and I've been taking notes here, I love the idea of getting a group of your friends together for gratitude. You know, and like you said, then you get those emails. It's not just you writing your 5 things down once, but then you're also getting everyone else's sprinkled throughout the day. You know, so that's just another reminder to be grateful.
Yes.
But I think that it sounds like meditation, just like a breathing exercise would be pretty easy to do during your plan time before you go down to lunch, something like that.
Yes. And I think that people get scared by that word meditation. Like for me, there's apps that you can do. Like I said, I like Ananda, or even Calm is a great app. But you're right. It's not trying to get rid of all your thoughts. It's just giving yourself a few minutes just to sit and just breathe in and breathe out. Like that's meditation. We feel like, we can't do it. We have to sit in this position and hold our hands a certain way. Right. We don't. Yeah.
And the whole clearing your mind thing, that's what always scared me. Because my mind's always, I have ADD, I swear. Yeah. But,
me too.
But that's not it. It's just being in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't resist those thoughts. They just come in and then you go, oh, okay, let me concentrate on my breath again. Okay. Oh, yeah. Now I've been thinking about this for the last couple minutes. Let's get back to thinking about my breath,
And so another thing I'd like people to take away is a reminder that when you start, you're not going to be successful, and that's okay.
Yes. That's why we give up too easily, because we think that it has to be perfect, or we think like we have to do it all, which is why I tell people we do these in chunks. Like I didn't incorporate all of these things just at one time. Like I have continued to evolve with my practice of all of it. And so I think again, teachers are the worst at this. Like I think we're so hard on ourselves. I don't know. Here's the truth of the matter. Once I kind of embraced the fact that I am this totally imperfect human being, I make mistakes, but I'm not any less of a person because of that. I'm not any less valued. I'm not any less of a person. Once I embraced that idea, I felt really free. I think we have to just give up that whole perfectionism. There are days when you're going to just not be a good dad or a good mom or a good wife or good friend. There's just going to be those days, but it doesn't take away your self-worth. You're still enough, just as you are.
Yeah.
I want to go back to gratitude a minute, because there's something else that we did in the classroom, and I'd like to challenge teachers to do this. But what if you took 90 seconds every day and you went around the room, and every child, starting at kindergarten all the way up to grade 12, every child said one thing they're grateful for. We used to do that. We got that down to 90 seconds. Boom, our kids would go around and they're thankful for this. And then we'd hop to the next person and hop to the next person. What that does is that sets our whole day up to be successful, because we've got our brain set towards positive. So I think you need to teach these well-being pieces. I think you need a social curriculum of happiness in your classroom. You need to teach gratitude. You need to teach empathy. Michelle Borba says that teens today are 40% less empathetic than they were a decade ago. And I believe it. We got to incorporate some of this back into our classrooms.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic considering the increase in anti-bullying and circles and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So I was just thinking, as you said that, because I'm always trying to be practical, as a classroom teacher, how can I get that 90 seconds? What if you worked that 90 seconds to be your attendance, taking attendance? I'm thinking I was a junior high teater. So, if you just went around the room, and that's your way of taking roll.
That is an awesome idea. I love that. Yeah. They have to answer by saying I'm thankful for. I love that idea.
Just trying to make it so that teachers don't think it's just one more thing,
Right. But here's what I also say to that. When we teach the growth mindset curriculum, which is a strong social curriculum, and I tell teachers, and Hal Bowman talks about this, by the way, on our Strobel Summit that's taking place next week. But that has such bang for its value. When you can teach a practice of gratitude to your students, that's kind of that pay you now to yield big dividends later. So I think we're all really stressed to get through the content, to get through the standards. But I think that we have to take a step back from all of that. And we have to incorporate kind of this character education that, years ago, you and I remember when we started our teaching careers, that was a part of our curriculum. And then it got kind of shoved out the door because we we decided we don't have time for any of that. Like, we need our kids to read and write and do math. But we've lost that. We've lost that character education piece. And I think it's becoming more important than ever. And so I think like sometimes we have to just say, I am going to give myself the space in my classroom, even if it feels like one more thing, because it's going to make the rest of my day be smoother and go better. You know?
Another thing I've noticed, so I've been in a lot of classrooms as an administrator, as a tech coach. I've been in lots of classrooms, and it seems to me that the most successful ones is where the teacher has allowed their personality to shine through and become the theme of the classroom. And so, if you can share your happiness journey with your kids, taking that time to bond with them and to share your journey and help them along as well, I think could be a powerful thing.
Yeah, I think that the most successful teachers are the ones who are really able to reveal who they really are as human beings and to share their personal stories with their students. I think you're right. It's one of the most powerful things that we can do for our kids. And, it's kind of interesting. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of kids. I mean, my son, who's now 18, used to kind of get irritated with me because I was always kind of doing these interviews with his friends. But I would always ask them like, who's your favorite teacher? When you look back at all your school years, who's your favorite teacher? But it was really the second question that was the best question, which was, now tell me why. And out of hundreds and hundreds of students that I've interviewed with that question, the why is always a version of the exact same two answers. And that is, my teacher is happy. My teacher is happy. My teacher loves what he does. Like, I can tell he loves being in the classroom with us. He loves teaching us. And then the other one is, my teacher cares about me. I never got anything other than a version of those two answers. And so I think we do have to embody that kids pick up on that, and it's not easy to do. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you that your paycheck does not mirror the value that you bring to that classroom every single day. You don't always get the accolades in this profession that you deserve, but it's a profession where you step into classrooms 180 days a year and you impact and you influence and you change lives. And that's who we are. That's who we are as educators. And that's the gift that we bestow upon our students. And so those kids need to feel that you are happy to be there doing that job with them.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, you've given up enough of your time this morning, and I totally appreciate that. How can people find you? And I know you have a tribe. How can people become part of this happiness tribe?
Yep. Okay, so if you go to strobeleducation.com, there's a newsletter sign up there. And what that's going to do is we do a lot of teacher freebies. We have, the Strobel Summit coming up next week, which is 6 hours of online PD for free. If you sign up for our newsletter off of strobeleducation.com, you're going to get that information, but you're also going to see a little bitty box checked that says Joy Drops. And our Joy Drops are happiness tips that I send to teachers every other week, just like a little inspirational story, a little happiness tip. Sometimes I share even a struggle that I'm having because I want something that will land in teachers' inboxes and they sit down for 30 seconds and they just feel renewed and uplifted. So that's one way you can get those. You can also go to kimstrobel.com and sign up for the Joy Drops on that website. Either way, you can get them.
Great. Okay. So sounds like the Joy Drops, that's the ticket right here.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you so much. I could talk all day about this. It's funny. My Science of Happiness keynote is the number one keynote right now that we get phone calls for, which really invigorates me because it makes me feel like administrators are getting that idea that, gosh, my teacher's well-being is super important.
is so important, especially when we're talking about teacher retention and the shortage of teachers and all of that.
Yeah. So, exactly.
Well, Kim, I could talk about this too all day long, but we've been on 40 minutes. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like about 4 minutes, but
yes, we are.
But thank you. And thanks to everyone else for listening to the Teacher's Classroom, which is part of the Illinois Area 5 Professional Development and Innovation Initiative. I'm your host, Matt Weld. Please subscribe, forward this on to one of your colleagues as a way to show gratitude that you mean something to me, and here's a gift. You can follow Teach Illinois on Twitter at TeachILPD, and I can be found at Matthew Weld. You can find and subscribe to the Teacher's Classroom on iTunes, SoundCloud, pretty much any podcasting app that you use. And with that, have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a fantastic school year, and I'll see you next time right here on the Teacher's Classroom.